The content of this video is based solely on public information from social media, public media, news outlets, and legal experts, commentators, and politicians, among others. Therefore, the content belongs to its respective creators. Our story begins on June 1st, 2019, the date on which Nayib Bukele, then 37 years old, was sworn in as President of El Salvador. Without belonging to traditional parties, he came to power as an outsider with a message of change. He declared himself the leader of a new era, and most of the people enthusiastically followed him, tired of corruption and violence. According to opinions in the media on the path to stability, Bukele believed the country had to take a different direction, one with a distinct nuance. He chose the path of power concentration. Through the concentration of power, Bukele has transformed the smallest country in Central America not only into one of the safest countries in the region, but also into a political laboratory where democracy has been put on hold. On February 9, 2020, the world watched with alarm as Nayib Bukele entered the Legislative Assembly with armed soldiers to pressure for a loan intended to fund his security plan. "An armed president with the army takes Congress," titled the Guardian newspaper. The Spanish newspaper El País titled, "A scene reminiscent of the darkest times of Latin American dictatorships." This episode, which Bukele considered necessary, marked the beginning of a clear strategy to neutralize any institutional opposition. In 2021, after achieving a qualified majority in the Assembly, Bukele, through his Legislative Assembly, without legal procedures, without rulings, without having been heard and defeated in trial, and using public force under his control, removed the magistrates of the Constitutional Chamber and the Attorney General of the Republic of El Salvador to then impose his own officials in this way, as publicly commented by some legal experts and various media outlets. This cleared the way for governing without checks and balances. This is how BBC Mundo titled it then. The new court, loyal to his government, would change the country's legal course, which we will see next. Media outlets indicate that in September 2021, the imposed court ruled that immediate presidential re-election was legal. It did so by reinterpreting Article 152 of the Constitution, which explicitly prohibits a second consecutive term. It argued that preventing people from voting for whomever they want, even repeatedly, was a violation of citizens' rights. Thus, Nayib Bukele ran in the 2024 elections, won with over 80% of the votes, and was cleared to continue. According to El Faro, it was the most crucial step in the demolition of democratic institutions. The Constitution was not reformed, it was simply ignored, legal experts said in the media. On July 31, 2025, the Assembly, still dominated by his New Ideas Party, approved a constitutional reform that eliminated the presidential re-election limit, extended the presidential term from 5 to 6 years, and abolished the second electoral round. According to some politicians, legal experts and media outlets, this move was done suddenly, as they usually do for decisions of this type, before the traditional Salvadoran August holidays, without debate, without citizen consultation, and simply trampling Article 248 of the Constitution, which states that in no case can articles related to the form, system of government, and the alternation of the presidency be reformed. In other words, such reforms cannot be made regarding the form of government and presidential alternation because they are petrified clauses, unmovable, and the only way to disregard them would be by creating a new constitution, meaning a constituent assembly would nullify the current Magna Carta and create a new constitution tailored to its needs. In summary, according to legal experts who give their public opinions, the so-called reforms are invalid. Reuters reported, El Salvador removes presidential term limits, opens doors for indefinite terms for Bukele. France 24 warned, these changes dismantle key points of the Constitution related to executive power, and El País titled, Bukele perpetuates his power without limit. Media outlets suggest that principles protected by so-called petrified clauses, provisions that, due to their importance, cannot be reformed by legislative means or popular consultation, were suppressed including the prohibition of indefinite re-election and the mandatory alternation in power, Articles 88, 152 and 248. Before continuing, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with your friends and leave us your comments. Thank you. According to some influencers and political scientists, the danger is not only that Bukele has been re-elected or that he centralizes decisions. What's truly alarming is that there's no longer any legal way to stop the power if it decides to act against the people's interest. There is no independent court, there is no parliamentary opposition, there are no oversight bodies, and now there's no time limit, say the legal experts. The conclusion some commentators suggest is that Nayib Bukele has transformed El Salvador with speed and efficiency. The country is now one of the safest in Latin America, and the general sense of well-being due to security cannot be denied, although the same cannot be said for corruption, health, economy, education, public debt, foreign investment, GDP, and other no less important areas. But in doing so, he has dismantled the democratic structures that protected citizens from abuse, say the legal scholars. Media outlets add that he has created a regime where the continuity of power is ensured not by law, but by the will of the ruler. Opponents point out that today many celebrate the results. And everyone has the right to their opinions. But they ask us all the following questions that you can answer in the comments. Have you thought about whether in the future the decision to give unlimited power to Bukele benefits the country just because, according to some, he is a good leader? What will happen if after a few years he changes and represses the people who gave him power, just as has always happened in many other countries with identical patterns? What will happen if his policies turn against a future United States administration and the country faces sanctions and becomes another Venezuela or Cuba? Politicians will always be fine, but you, who are watching this video, might not be. But hey, let's be positive and assume that Bukele becomes a good leader, a transformative philosopher for the country's well-being, and stays that way for years. Have you thought, who can guarantee he'll always be in power? What if he gets sick? What if something happens and he's unable to continue? Legal experts say the damage to democracy has already been done. So what will happen if Bukele's future successor might not be as compliant as his predecessor, who will restore the checks, the separation of powers and the limitations so that an evil president doesn't abuse his absolute power? All the constitutional changes, unlimited re-elections and total absolute power of the country will fall into the hands of someone who might not be what you expect. And then what will you do? You will have left your children a legacy of a country under a dictatorship. The Holy Scripture, in Jeremiah 17:5, literally told us thousands of years ago, "Cursed is the one who trusts in man." If you don't believe in the Bible, there's always the reliable old saying, never put all your eggs in one basket. The price of order can be too high if paid with freedom. Because people who give everything to power out of fear or comfort often end up regretting not having defended their limits when they still could. And what do you think? If you liked this video, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it, and leave us your comments, whether for or against. Thank you, we'll see you next time. And don't forget, do good and don't look at who.